9-year-old Welmeson Ray had a fascination that towered above every other interest in his life: airplanes. While many children his age memorized sports players, superheroes, or cartoon characters, Welmeson memorized aircraft models, runway procedures, and the names of famous pilots. His room looked less like a child's bedroom and more like a tiny aviation museum. Airplane posters lined his walls, model jets hung from the ceiling by strings, and his shelves overflowed with miniature aircraft he had collected since he was 5. His mother often teased that he had learned the difference between a Boeing and an Airbus long before he learned long division. In truth, Welmeson had a natural gift for observation. He could identify a plane by the sound of its engine alone, and his favorite part of any day was watching aircraft fly overhead while he tried to guess their altitude and direction. On the morning of the flight, excitement flowed through him like electricity. He was finally going to visit his grandparents in Delhi, a trip he had been counting down to for weeks. But for Welmeson, the thrill wasn't just about seeing his grandparents. It was about flying. He wore his favorite red t-shirt with a tiny winged emblem on the front, carried his binoculars around his neck, and stuffed his young pilot handbook into his backpack. The airport felt like stepping into another world. Towering ceilings, shiny floors reflecting bright lights, and the constant hum of announcements made it feel alive. Welmeson walked through the terminal with wide, observant eyes, taking in everything. Ground crew vehicles beeping outside, passengers rushing, screens showing flight paths. Every moment mattered. He pressed his face to the tall glass windows as he watched the planes taxi, align, and lift into the sky. "One day I'll be flying one of those," he murmured. His mother smiled warmly. "I believe you will, my little pilot." When it was finally time to board, Welmeson practically jogged down the jet bridge. The faint smell of fuel and the soft vibration beneath his shoes made his heart race with excitement. As he stepped into the aircraft, he greeted the flight attendants with bright enthusiasm, then hurried to his window seat directly over the wing, his favorite view. Settling in, he immediately opened the window shade and studied the wings structure like a scientist analyzing a rare artifact. He looked at the flaps, the ailerons, the winglets. Every part had a job, and he loved knowing what each one did. When the engines roared to life and the plane sped down the runway, Welmeson felt the familiar thrill of acceleration. Then came his favorite moment, the liftoff. As the wheels left the ground and the city shrank below, Welmeson pressed his forehead to the glass. It felt like he was being welcomed back to the place he belonged, the sky. For the next hour, everything was calm. The aircraft soared smoothly above cottony clouds, sunlight bathing the cabin in a warm glow. Passengers sipped drinks, read books, or dozed peacefully. Welmeson sipped orange juice while flipping through his pilot handbook, feeling as happy as one could possibly be. But fate has a way of changing things when no one expects it. Without warning, the plane trembled. At first, it was gentle, barely noticeable. Welmeson paused, frowning. Then the tremble happened again, stronger this time. Making his juice cup wobble. He turned to the window. Something was wrong. A thin line of smoke curled from the left engine. His heart skipped a beat. Smoke in flight was never normal. He had read enough to know that. Before he could say anything, the entire plane jolted as though struck by an invisible force. A loud metallic bang echoed from the wing. Passengers gasped, some screamed. Overhead bins rattled, a few bags fell out, and a baby burst into loud cries. The seatbelt sign flashed urgently. Ding, ding. Welmeson's mother grabbed his hand. "It's okay, sweetie," she whispered, trying to stay calm. But Welmeson could feel her fear through her trembling fingers. Asterisk, the captain's voice came over the speakers, strained but steady. Asterisk, ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing a technical issue. Please remain seated and keep your seatbelts fastened. Asterisk, Welmeson's pulse raced. The smoke was still there, thin but steady, and the vibrations in the cabin grew sharper. Passengers murmured anxiously. A woman held her husband's arm so tightly her knuckles turned white. Someone whispered a prayer. Asterisk, Welmeson felt fear too, a cold knot tightening in his stomach. But alongside the fear was something else, a strange alertness, a sense of clarity. As though his brain knew this moment mattered. Asterisk, he looked out the window. One more time, then back at the aisle where flight attendants rushed quietly, their faces pale. Asterisk, something deep inside him whispered, "This is the day everything changes." He didn't know how, but he could feel it. Asterisk, and as Flight 307 trembled in the open sky, the path of courage was beginning to unfold for Welmeson Ray. Asterisk. The plane shook again, harder this time. The kind of shake that didn't feel like ordinary turbulence, but something deeper, something mechanical. The cabin lights flickered for a brief second before stabilizing, and a ripple of fear passed through the passengers like a silent wave. Asterisk, Welmeson's heart thumped rapidly. He glanced at the left engine again through the window. The faint trail of smoke had grown thicker, curling upward in unsettling patterns. His stomach tightened. He knew enough to recognize that an engine malfunction midair was a serious emergency. Asterisk, a flight attendant named Mira hurried down the aisle, her usually calm face drawn with worry. She tried to keep her voice steady as she addressed passengers. "Please stay seated. Keep your seatbelts fastened." But her eyes kept darting toward the cockpit. Welmeson watched her closely. Even at 9 years old, he could read the fear behind her professional smile. Then another attendant, Rishi, approached her. They leaned together, whispering urgently. The words were too quiet for most people to hear, but Welmeson's ears were sharp and his curiosity sharper. Asterisk, he heard 3 words that made cold chills run down his spine. Asterisk, co-pilot unconscious, captain struggling. His breath caught. The co-pilot? Unconscious? Asterisk, the captain alone trying to control a plane with a failing engine? Asterisk, Welmeson swallowed hard. This wasn't just turbulence. This was real danger. Asterisk, passengers around him began buzzing with anxious murmurs. A woman clutched her child to her chest, rocking back and forth. An elderly man pressed his palms together in prayer. Someone else frantically pressed the call button, asking a flight attendant if the plane was going to crash. Asterisk, Welmeson's mother tried to soothe him, but he barely heard her. His mind was racing faster than the plane itself. Asterisk. He remembered all the simulation flights he'd practiced at home on the computer, hundreds of them. He knew takeoff procedures, landing configurations, emergency protocols. Of course, it wasn't the same as flying a real aircraft, but he understood the basics. His brain wasn't panicking like the others. Instead, it was analyzing, calculating, thinking through possibilities. Asterisk, another violent jolt shook the plane. A few passengers screamed. A drink cart rolled a few inches. Before a flight attendant caught it, Asterisk, Myra spoke into her radio again. Her voice trembled. Asterisk, the captain is requesting anyone with flight experience. Anyone. Her sentence faded as the speaker system crackled sharply overhead. Then the captain's voice boomed through the cabin for the second time, but this time it carried urgency that could not be hidden. Asterisk, ladies and gentlemen, if there is anyone on board with aviation experience, please make yourself known immediately. We need assistance in the cockpit. The cabin fell silent. No one moved. No hand rose. No voice answered. Asterisk, people looked around desperately, hoping for a pilot, an engineer, a retired aviator, someone, anyone. But the seats remained filled with frightened passengers whose faces showed nothing but helplessness. Welmeson felt his chest tighten. The captain wasn't using professional detachment now, he was pleading, and no one could help him. Or could they? Welmeson felt a strange calm wash over him. He stared down at his small hands. They weren't the hands of a trained pilot, but they were steady, capable, experienced in ways that adults didn't expect from a child. His mother noticed the expression on his face. Welmeson, no, she whispered softly, sensing his thoughts. You're just a child. It's too dangerous. He looked at her with a determination she had never seen in his eyes before. Mom, he said quietly, I know how the controls work. I know how to stabilize the plane. I've practiced this so many times. Her eyes filled with fear. Simulation isn't real flying, but it's something. He cut her off gently but firmly. Nobody else knows anything. The captain needs help. Mom, if I don't go, who will? She froze. Because deep down, she knew he was right. Before she could respond, Mira approached them. Ma'am, is everything okay? Welmeson stood up slowly. His legs felt light, but his resolve was firm. His voice was small, yet clear. I can help, he said. I've studied airplanes since I was 5. I know the control systems. I've flown dozens of simulated flights. I can help the captain. Mira blinked, startled. You? Sweetheart, you're just a child, he finished. I know. But I can help stabilize the plane. I understand. The controls. Rishi approached, overhearing. The captain is asking for any help. We can't afford to ignore any possibility. Myra hesitated, looking between Rishi, the boy, and his mother. After a moment of agonizing uncertainty, she crouched down to Welmeson's level. Are you absolutely sure? She asked. Welmeson nodded without wavering. With a deep breath, Mira stood. Come with me. The cabin erupted into whispers as Welmeson stepped into the aisle. People stared at him in disbelief, some hopeful, some confused, some scared. Welmeson held his mother's hand one last time before she let go reluctantly. He followed the flight attendants toward the cockpit. With each step, his fear faded, and his courage grew. The fate of Flight 307 was waiting behind that cockpit door. The hallway leading to the cockpit felt much longer than it looked before. Each step echoed with the low hum of the engines, a hum now shaky and uneven. Welmeson's heart thudded loudly in his chest, but his feet didn't stop moving. Mira and Rishi walked beside him, exchanging anxious glances. The seriousness of the moment pressed against him like heavy air. But he didn't turn back. At the cockpit door. Mira paused and pressed a button. Captain, she called through the intercom. We're here. We found someone. A moment of static crackled, then the captain's exhausted voice replied, Bring them in. Quickly. The door unlocked with a click and slid open. Welmeson stepped inside. The cockpit was a chaos of flashing lights, blinking alarms and warning messages glowing red across the screens. The air smelled faintly of overheating electronics. The pilot, Captain Arjundev, sat in the left seat, hunched forward, gripping the controls with white-knuckled tension. Sweat beaded on his forehead, and his deep brown eyes reflected the bright, pulsing alerts around him. In the co-pilot's seat lay the unconscious first officer, strapped in but completely still. His headset dangled, and a thin scrape on his forehead showed where he'd hit something during the earlier turbulence. Captain Arjun turned. Expecting an adult, maybe an aviation engineer, maybe a trainee pilot. Instead, he saw a boy, a small boy. His eyebrows shot up. "Is this a joke?" Myra quickly shook her head. "Captain, he says he understands flight controls. He's practiced on simulations for years." Captain Arjun's face tightened with disbelief. "A simulation isn't a cockpit." Welmeson stepped forward. "I know it's not the same, sir," he said, despite the pounding in his chest. "But I know the instruments. I know the flaps, ailerons, rudder control, and I know how to stabilize pitch and roll." The captain stared at him for a long second. The plane lurched. Again hard, an alarm screamed. "Stall warning, stall warning." Captain Arjun cursed under his breath and yanked the control column forward to correct the tilt. "We don't have time," Rishi said urgently. "We need another pair of hands, even small ones." Welmeson swallowed and repeated, softly, "I can help." The plane shuddered again, violently. The captain's jaw clenched, and he made a decision that would have seemed impossible minutes earlier. "Fine," he said. "Take the co-pilot's seat." Welmeson slid into the chair. His feet barely reached the floor and the seatbelt felt oversized, but when he placed his small hands on the cool metal of the control column, something inside him clicked. It felt familiar, different from home, but not foreign. Captain Arjun spoke quickly. "Left engine is failing. We've lost thrust and partial hydraulic pressure. I've been compensating manually, but it's exhausting. I need you to manage stabilization while I focus on the engine and landing prep." Welmeson nodded. "Tell me what to do." For a moment, the captain studied him, really studied him. He saw fear in the boy's eyes, but also focus, determination, and courage far beyond his years. "All right, Welmeson. First ease back the yoke just a bit. We're nose dropping." Welmeson gripped the controls and gently pulled. The nose of the aircraft lifted slightly. A squealing stall alarm finally went silent. "Good," the captain said softly, surprised. "Now, counter the left tilt. Use the ailerons." Welmeson adjusted, remembering everything he had practiced. For a moment, the plane steadied. Captain Arjun gave him a quick, incredulous glance. "You've done this before?" "In simulations, a lot of them." "And I thought my nephew played too many video games," the captain murmured. "They worked in rhythm." Captain Arjun handled engine diagnostics and communicated with air traffic control, his voice tense, but controlled. Welmeson maintained the plane's balance, correcting dips, countering rolls, adjusting pitch. His hands trembled sometimes, but he never stopped. Alarms kept flashing. Questions from a TC streamed in. The damaged engine sputtered like a dying heartbeat. At one point, the turbulence shook the cockpit so hard that the captain grabbed the overhead handles to steady himself. Welmeson felt fear clawing at him, beginning to rise, but Captain Arjun placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Stay with me," the captain said. "You're doing incredible." Welmeson nodded, taking a shaky breath. "Just tell me what next." Minutes felt like hours. The passengers behind them had no idea a child was co-steering the aircraft. They sat in fear, unaware that someone, barely tall enough to reach the rudder pedals, was helping save them. As the ground neared and the airport grew visible through the windshield, the captain finally said the words Welmeson had been waiting for and fearing. "It's time to prepare for landing." Welmeson's throat tightened. "Can we do it?" Captain Arjun gave him a brave, tense smile. "Together." "Yes, we don't have another choice." He adjusted the throttle. Welmeson lowered the flaps under his command. The plane descended toward the runway, unstable, damaged, trembling. But inside the cockpit, a boy kept his hands firm on the controls. A boy who refused to let fear win. A boy kept his hands firm on the controls. A boy kept his hands firm on the controls. Boy who was now part of the sky he had always loved. The runway stretched ahead like a long, narrow ribbon. Welmeson could see it through the cockpit window, glowing under the afternoon sunlight. The aircraft dipped as a gust of wind hit the damaged wing, and the plane wobbled dangerously. Warning! Lights continued to blink a desperate symphony across the cockpit panels. Welmeson tightened his grip on the control column. Captain Arjun's voice was steady, but sweat lined his brow. "All right, Welmeson. This is the final stretch. Wheel. Bring her down slowly. I'll manage the throttle. You keep her level. Ready?" Welmeson nodded, even though his heart felt like it was pounding right out of his chest. "Yes, sir, I'm ready." But was he? The question flickered in his mind for a second. He was only nine, but then he remembered all the passengers. Behind him, the mothers, the children, the elderly man who had been praying. His mom, if he gave in to fear now, their fate would spin out of control. So he took a deep breath and pushed the doubt away. "I can do this," he whispered to himself. The plane descended lower, the wheels still tucked beneath the belly. The damaged left engine shuddered, coughing out smoke. The right engine roared loudly, doing twice the work to keep the aircraft airborne. Air traffic control crackled through the radio. Skywings 307 cleared for emergency landing. Fire crews are standing by. Captain Arjun responded with a tight voice. Copy. Attempting landing with partial control. Welmeson steadied the plane as instructed. Every small movement of his hands translated into massive movements of the aircraft. His palms grew sweaty. His arms trembled from holding the column so long. Lower the landing gear, the captain said. Welmeson reached for the lever with trembling fingers and pulled it down. Deep mechanical clunk echoed beneath the aircraft. Gear. Down and locked. The captain confirmed after checking the indicator. Good job. The runway grew larger, closer, too close. The plane was still descending too fast. Captain, we're coming in too steep. Welmeson said, voice nearly cracking. I know I'm reducing throttle. The captain pulled the lever back, reducing engine power. Ease back on the yoke. Just a little, not too much, or we'll stall. Welmeson pulled gently, feeling the resistance of the control column. The nose lifted slightly, and the descent slowed. Perfect, Captain Arjun said. His voice was tight with concentration, but hopeful. Just like that, the plane was seconds from touching down. The runway numbers flashed beneath them. 5, 4, 3, 2, The plane slammed onto the ground harder than normal. The impact jolted the cockpit violently. Welmeson lurched forward against his seatbelt. The wheels screeched. Smoke puffing from the tires. The plane began to skid, tilting dangerously to the left because of the damaged engine. Counter the tilt. The captain shouted. Welmeson reacted instantly. He pulled the yoke right, correcting the direction. The plane straightened momentarily but began FISHTAILING. Fire trucks zoomed along the side of the runway, sirens blaring. Welmeson heard passengers screaming behind the cockpit door. Keep her straight, Welmeson. You've got this, Captain Arjun commanded. Welmeson held the controls tight, guiding the nose forward, fighting the side pull of the injured engine. His arms burned with effort. His small fingers dug into the column. The aircraft skidded, swayed, rattled. Asterisk sparks flew from the left landing gear. The runway streaked past them in a blur. Then, at last, the plane began to slow. Asterisk the roaring engine quieted. The wheels rolled smoothly. The shaking stopped. They were on the ground. Alive. Safe. Asterisk the cockpit fell silent except for the ticking of cooling metal. Captain Arjun let out a long breath, a breath he had been holding for far too long. Asterisk. He turned slowly to Welmeson. The boy's face was pale, his hands trembling, but his eyes still sharp. "You," the captain whispered, voice full of awe. "Save this plane," Asterisk Welmeson exhaled shakily. "We saved it." Asterisk behind them, the cabin erupted in cries, some of relief, some of joy, some of disbelief. Applause thundered through the aircraft. People hugged strangers. Tears flowed freely. Asterisk when the cockpit door opened. The first sight the passenger saw was Welmeson, small, exhausted, brave, standing beside Captain Arjun. Mira clapped a hand over her mouth. "That boy. He did it," she whispered. Asterisk the passengers cheered louder. Some shouted, "Hero!" Others reached out to thank him as he walked down the aisle. Asterisk his mother rushed to him, pulling him into a tight embrace. Asterisk, "My brave boy," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You're safe. Thank God you're safe." Asterisk later, when fire crews escorted them off the plane, reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. Microphones stretched forward. Asterisk, "Is it true a 9-year-old helped land the aircraft?" Asterisk, "What's your name, young hero?" Asterisk, "How did you know what to do?" Welmeson looked shyly at the cameras. "I just did what I could. I love planes, and I didn't want anyone to get hurt." Captain Arjun placed a hand on his shoulder. "This boy," he announced proudly, "saved over 180 lives today." Asterisk, and from that moment on, Welmeson Ray wasn't just a kid who dreamed of the sky. Asterisk he was. Sky of courage, the boy who helped a plane land when hope was almost lost. Asterisk.